Hey, I'm Kimberly Conicella, massive anti-bullying advocate and mother to two beautiful kids, a qualified education and communications expert who went from being bullied, dealing with the trauma of it, into teaching kids how to deal with conflict. Now I'm obsessed with helping other parents to do the same with my business that's changed lives of hundreds of kids worldwide, the Courage Edition. Each week, I'll be releasing episodes that give you simple, actionable, and practical advice so that you can decode and explore the multiple different pieces of the puzzle for overcoming bullying and conflict so that you can feel relieved and your child can feel empowered and strong. Because a child shouldn't have to be worrying about being picked on or dealing with hurtful bullying. So if you're a courageous parent like me, yet feel totally helpless in supporting your child through bullying and friendship conflicts, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, Olivia. Welcome to the Courage Edition podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
That is okay. I'm so excited to have a chat with you about all the things with your daughter and how the Courage Edition has helped you. So can we start with telling me a bit about what happened before I came on the scene, before we started working together?
So my daughter was, I think, just experiencing, for her age, like very common schoolyard bullying. I remember experiencing it as a kid. Like, I know that, when we spoke about like what our experiences were, you remember experiencing it as a child. And I think it's a very, where we found ourselves before working with you, it was just part of the road, unfortunately.
Can you give me some examples of what was happening?
So there was a lot of like leaving her out, a lot of like speaking and whispering, and there's a lot of isolation and just general like genuinely mean bullying, like genuinely, it was pretty horrible. And it was just typical, like one set of group of friends started within her friendship group, and kind of grew from there.
Yeah. And how was it making your daughter feel?
I think in the beginning I didn't give it as much credit, knowledge and credit and fire to the flame as what I probably could have done for her, like in terms of as a mum and a parent. I think I was just like, oh, you'll be fine, go to school, like find someone else to play with. Like, I didn't give it enough notice.
I don't think you're the only one that has had those feelings as a parent, because we all go through that. So you're definitely not alone.
I say this in a lot of areas of my life, but hindsight's a wonderful thing. Like, that's exactly what it is. But I think deep down it was affecting her much more than, again, we were giving it credit for.
And when did you notice that? What happened for you to realize, okay, this is actually worse than what we thought?
When she was crying herself to sleep, when she was not wanting to go to school, when she was crying on drop off, and she has her other challenges within her own mental health, which we had navigated through other courses and other coaches like yourself, and we were using those strategies for her mental health in order to get her to school, and to I thought that was going to be enough. By using those other strategies. But I definitely think, once it was to a point where I couldn't just drop and go like I normally would do, I think that was like really eye-opening. In our school, we do a drive-through kind of system. So you just drive through, the kids jump out, whatever. And it was getting to a point where like I would sit at the front of drive-through and she would be like, I'm not going to school. I can't go into school. I'm not going to school. And I was very much of the approach, and I still am somewhat, like I think, I use the skills and what you've taught us, but I think I just use them in a better, like I use them in a better way. But I'm very much of the approach. It's like, well, you have to go to school. Schools are non-negotiable in our household. Have a mental health day when you need it. But when it's consistently happening, like you can't have a mental health 5 days of the week for the whole term. That's not achievable.
No.
it would make it worse, like if I was to walk her in. So then I was in
Oh
like
no.
this real catch-22 where I was like, I either like almost kick her out of the car crying, or I walk her in not crying, but then she won't let go of me and I have to rip her off me, which is almost more embarrassing for her, I feel, like in the long term. Like it makes it even more like, at least if she gets out of the car crying with me, she can be like, oh yeah, mum and I had a fight. You know, like she doesn't need to necessarily direct it towards what's actually happening. Whereas if she's like holding on to me and can't let go, like she can't say we had a fight because they've just seen all this affection and, you know, and I'm not one to wrap my kids in cotton wool. Like I'm just not that parent.
And what were the teachers doing at this point? Was there any support from her teacher?
Her teacher was well aware of what was going on. We were very lucky to have the same teacher 2 years in a row. So the bullying started last year with this one particular girl. And the teacher was aware that things were going on and that things weren't getting much better. We were having meetings and things like that, but there wasn't really any movement. Like there wasn't really any, there was all these things happening for us on our end. And I was like, this and this and this, but then there was really nothing from their end in the beginning, which was disappointing.
Did they have any advice for you? When did you start going up to the school to talk about it? Had you done that before we started working together?
Yeah. Yeah, I had like not necessarily having sit-in meetings with the school, but I do remember one instance. I was emailing them. There was a lot of back and forward emails. You know, I appreciate the teachers are super busy with just their normal day-to-day things that they have to get done. And I was doing lots of backwards and forwards emails, and just like touching base with her and being like, they came home and said this and rah, rah, rah. I think the real turning point for them was like the school was I picked her up one day. She was crying and I was like, oh, what happened today? And she got in the car and said something to me. And I was like, that's it. And I just like marched to the front office and I was like, I need to speak to someone right now. If you do not put me in a meeting room with someone now, I'm going to go and have this dealt with another authority and you don't want that to happen. And I think at that point they were like, oh, right. Like at this point, I think it had been a full 3 terms of consistent, ongoing, same thing, different day. And it fluctuated, right? Like she'd come home, she'd have a great day. The teachers would be like, oh my God, she's had a great day. Wonderful. We're on the right track. And then she'd have 3 bad days. And then she'd have one good day.
Yeah. And that for her self-worth and self-esteem, it's just that constant sort of hit on their self-esteem, so it continues to decrease and decrease and decrease.
Yeah, and I definitely saw it affecting other areas of her life. Like it wasn't just, you know, she's a huge sport player. She loves her sport, and I saw that self-doubt, which I had never seen before. And I saw that self-doubt like starting to encroach in those other areas of her life. And I do like now that we've come out the other end of it and she has all these strategies and everything from working with you, I do see her applying those strategies personally as well as within friendship groups. Like she journals every night. She, you know, gets up in the morning, is really positive. So I do see her like in putting all those things into play, not only in her friendship circles and in a school ground, but also in her personal life. And, you know, even navigating our own relationship, you know, a mother-daughter relationship in that tween stage is a lot. I was trying to think of a word that wasn't like harsh. It's a lot. And I think, yeah, it's challenging. And it's challenging for both of us, not just me. I mean, so, you know, she's using a lot of those strategies in all areas of her life now and not just within that friendship group.
That's so brilliant. And I can see that just in the relationship that you have with her. It's so beautiful. Just following along on social media with you guys I just love it. I smile every time I see a nice post, but with the two of you in it, it's lovely. So
yeah,
well done you. Well done you.
She is my best friend today. Yeah. Ask me that question tomorrow and it might be different, but
oh my gosh, that's so great. So once I came on the scene, what did you notice that your daughter was what did she take from what we were doing together in terms of the coaching? And what did you notice in the way she looked at herself changed?
I think in the beginning, um, like she did struggle. She did struggle with actually putting the things that we were being taught within our sessions into play. Like I think, and not because for any other reason except she was worried about the retaliation. I think like from
Yeah.
because she'd just been knocked down and like knocked down so far that she was lower than ground level now. Like she was.
And I completely get that, because what would have been happening is her inner strength was not there. She
Mm,
had none because she'd just been knocked down, as you said. And so it takes a while for her to build up her inner strength to be able to use any of the strategies that we talk about.
yeah,
And so that's a huge part of the course, which kind of has evolved. And I've gone deeper into the inner strength side of things to start with this program, because they need it so badly at that point, because they are really struggling with their self-esteem and self-worth.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm not surprised that that's how your daughter was at the start of us working together.
Yeah, and I think as well, I think she had seen we like I said previously, we've done coaching with other coaches and other programs for other areas within her life. So I think she was very open-minded to the idea of doing this, and she was quite excited when I told her we were starting to work together. I think she saw it as a bit of a relief and a bit of, you know, I guess for lack of a better word, but putting a pin in the pressure cooker and like letting it explode. Like I feel like that's what this was for her, because she did feel like, oh my God, someone's listening to me. Someone's giving me the time of day. Someone's giving me strategies to help with this. And whilst there was some, I would say, resistance in the beginning, that was quickly worked through because, we did a lot of work at home as well. It wasn't just, obviously you gave us all the strategies that we needed and that were going to work for us, but it was a lot of work. There was lots of writing on the bathroom mirrors, I am worthy, I am grateful, and we would do that. And she started journaling, and we would talk about our day in the car. And I was really conscious, because there is other children, like she has a younger sister. I was really conscious in the car now of giving them their certain set of time to tell me about their day, whereas it was a bit of a free-for-all before. Like it was a bit like, oh, what did you do today? And one would speak and the other would interrupt. Whereas now, especially since doing the course, I say to them, okay, who's telling me about their day first? And, if it's my older daughter, she tells me about her day. And then, it did take some time. The young one had to stop interrupting. But now they know, okay, well, that's my sister's time to say. So I did make a conscious effort to actually give them the time of day to listen to them, and both of them, because that's really important.
When I started going to school while I was working with you, it really made a difference, because I felt very much more confident than I normally would. It felt like I could speak to you no matter what. And I felt like even though everything was going down, I somehow felt good still. Like you were probably the person that kept me together. And at school, obviously I still wasn't the best, but my teacher would continuously check in with me, and I would always be like, yep, I'm alright, like I can get through it. I can get through this day, I can get through this middle session, I can do this, I can do that, because of the bullying coaching that you helped me with.
Do you think that your ability to actively listen has gotten better? Because I with the program that I run, I really try to work on, yes, the kids, but also helping the parents have the skills to be able to emotionally support their kids through what they're going through. And a big part of that is actively listening. And when we were working together, your daughter got that one-to-one active listening from me, but from you as well. So she was getting it from everywhere. So she was probably feeling more supported, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think I'm definitely a better listener, 100%. I definitely was not the greatest listener to her at all, or her sister at all. I would very much, without realizing I was doing it, I would discount their feelings, because I'd be like, oh, I've like, and I'm very much a, like, don't care kind of gal. Like, I'm like, you think that about me? That's fine. You think that about me. That's not going to affect me. And it's taken me a long time to get to that. And I think I just assumed that my kids would be the same. They'd be like, oh, that doesn't bother me, you know, whatever, because I've always been like that.
Yeah. I feel like
and
you learn that though, don't you think? Like
Yes.
you've learned that. And I don't know what you were like as a child, but I'm the same as you now. But as a child, I was so sensitive.
Yes, same.
And
I was a people pleaser.
yeah, I was a people pleaser and I was always concerned about what others thought about me. And it's taken me into adulthood before I could actually not care what
Yeah.
people think. And I think that for kids, we forget that they have to learn that. And so if we can model that, that's great. My parents didn't model that for me. They were very much, my mum in particular was very much put others first before yourself. And while that's okay, sometimes I think that it's really important that you learn to put yourself first. And part of that is not worrying about what other people think, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think as a parent, I just kind of assumed, like I genuinely did. I just assumed, which is not the greatest tool in parenting, I must admit. Like assumptions are not. If this conversation does anything, I hope it just makes parents realize that they're actually not alone. We all do the same things, whether it's, you know, on varying levels. And so I think, I think I just assumed she would be a no care, who cares what people think about me kind of gal. And she's not. She's the total opposite. She's a complete people pleaser. She really cares about what people think of her. She needs to wear the nicest things and have the nicest clothes and, you know, all those typical tween, you know, things, which is fine. She'll navigate that space. But I do really believe that since doing the program, she has shifted and she's totally come, you know, 100 steps forward in that space. You know, she'll get in the car now and I'll be like, instead of me being like, oh, what happened today? Because that was the common thing. Like she'd get in the car and she'd be upset and I'd be like, oh, babe, what happened today? And she'd like burst into tears and tell me. And now she gets in the car and she's like, Mum, you want the tea? And I'm like, yes, I want the tea. So I think, you know, like, and it will be things that have affected her during the day. Like, you know, oh my goodness, like this person, like only yesterday she got in the car and was like, Mum, do you want the tea? And I was like, give it to me, girl, give it to me. And she goes, oh, well, this happened this morning and this girl was running away from me at drop off and rah, 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 rah. And I was like, and I immediately went into this sheer internal panic. Like I genuinely did. I was like, oh my God, here we go again. Because she has come out the other end now and she has a beautiful group of friends. And I was like, all right, here we go again. She is going to be the target of them again and like all the rest. But she was just like, once she started talking about it, it totally changed my perspective because she was like, yeah. And then so, you know, this girl and I went and spoke to her and I just went up to her and I said, what's the go, mate? And she was like, I don't have to tell everyone my stuff. And I was like, yeah, but if you're not going to speak to me and you're going to run away from me, you know, she really stood up for herself in that situation. So the further into the story we got, the more confident I was that she was like, not putting up with anyone's garbage, which was really nice. It was a really lovely conversation.
That's so great to hear. And it's nice that like what I'm seeing from clients is that once they build that inner strength, it doesn't matter if there are bullies again. It doesn't matter if there's toxic people that are within their group. They have the ability to stand up for themselves and then it's not an issue for them anymore. So it's those life skills that they're building. You know, listening to Olivia and her daughter share their story reminds me exactly why I created Bully Proof Academy. It's for parents who feel stuck, unsure of how to help their child through bullying or tricky friendship conflicts. And let's be real, most of us have been there at some point. Inside BPA, I walk you through the Courage Method. It's my signature 3-step framework to help kids build inner strength, learn practical strategies to handle bullying, and feel fully supported by you. And as parents, you get the tools to navigate this in a way that helps your child not just survive, but thrive. If you're sitting there thinking, this sounds like exactly what I need, you're not alone. So many parents and kids have joined my program and told me it's completely changed the way they approach their tough moments. So if you're ready to start turning things around for your child, check out Bully Proof Academy. The link is in the show notes, and I'd love to have you join us. Now, back to the conversation with Olivia. What do you think your daughter got from, like, what strategies do you think she got from working with me, working with the Courage Edition?
I think the biggest one, and you and I have spoken about this so much, is her circle of control. Like, if there is one thing I wish they taught in schools, like, it's that. Like, I just wish they did a whole year on circle of control. Like, it was a set topic in the curriculum every year from kindergarten up. What is your circle of control? Because obviously it changes, you know, there is different circles of control every year you get. And I was not blessed with, and it's not because my parents didn't care by any means, but this kind of coaching wasn't available to kids when I was a kid, you know, like, it's such a new stage of life. And I wasn't taught, I didn't even know what circle of control was until I'd had kids, really. And you know, luckily for me, that was early. But, you know, for other people, like, if that's the time you're finding out about circle of control, like, that's terrifying to me. So yeah, her circle of control is massive. And we always, like, if she's come home from school and had a really bad day and she's like, oh, you know, this person said this, because I'm not saying it's perfect. It's definitely not. But it's heaps better. And I'm like, okay, well, think about your circle of control, you know, and we sit, like, it doesn't even need to be a sit down conversation. I can be cooking dinner or doing the dishes and she's just chatting to me about her day. And the minute she puts into perspective what's happened within her day and in her circle of control, like, no worries in the world. She realizes she can't control that. And, you know, it is what it is. It's different with her sister. She thinks she can control everything about her, but that's a different story.
And I think that comes with age too. As she develops, she'll be able to understand that a bit more, especially as she starts to have conflict with friends, because unfortunately it is inevitable and it does happen. Yeah. So tell me about your daughter's friendship circles. What happened with her friendship circles? Is she in the same group still? Has she moved on?
The initial bullying was with a friendship circle that she had for quite some time, like quite a few years, and she just kept holding on to it. So then she moved friendship circles to another group of girls, which was hard. That was a really, really, really difficult period. Like,
was that when I was working with her?
Yeah, we were working together. And, like, thank the heavens above, because I don't know how we would have coped. Like, it was honestly horrible. Just like all the feelings that came with having to move friendship circles. Like, I guess for us as adults, we're kind of like, you know, you can drift apart from people and you're like, oh, you know, I wish them well. If I saw them in the street, we'd stop and have a chat. And there wasn't really any, like, negativity surrounding it, which is, you know, we're equipped to handle that a bit better. Whereas for my daughter, because it was really just one particular child in this group and there was 4 or 5 other girls that followed but weren't necessarily being directly mean to her, if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
She had to navigate those, I guess, larger emotions that, you know, you or I are equipped to navigate, and, you know, whatever, with 6 people at the same time, knowing that if this one girl was removed, that she'd be friends with all the other girls.
Yeah, that's tough.
And I think, like, you know, kudos to her for realizing that there was one girl and the rest were probably her friends, but moving away from that was the best thing for her. So she moved into another friendship group, and that was difficult because she is older than a lot of her peers, and like, she's one of the older girls in her grade, and so she actually gets along really well with the kids above her, like in the grade above her. Emotionally, they're much better aligned. They're on her, like, level a bit more. So she did start playing with those girls, and then the teachers got involved and they were like, oh, because I kept going back to them and I was like, you know, she's still coming home from school upset. We need to do something about it, rah, rah, rah. And then they were like, oh, well, we don't want her playing with the year 6 girls.
Right.
And I was like, why? And they were concerned that once they moved on at the end of this year, that she'd have no one, which I appreciate. You know, I hadn't really thought of that. As much as I wasn't happy with what the school were doing, I hadn't considered that really much at all.
Yeah.
So they were encouraging her to find a group of friends within her own age, like within her own cohort. And she ended up really gelling with one particular girl. They were great friends. The girl was definitely more mature than other girls in their grade, I think, because she's the youngest of quite a lot of siblings, and so she probably had to do growing up pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah.
So she ended up really gelling with this girl, and she was in this group of friends, and then it started again with another girl in this different group. And this happened after we worked together.
Did your daughter, was she able to put into practice any of the strategies?
Yeah.
Like, was it an easier situation in the sense that she was equipped to handle it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was definitely something that she put into play. I think she definitely used the strategies. But the bullying was worse. Like, the bullying was much more than mean girl behavior.
Wow.
But I just kept, like, you know, even, you know, obviously we did coaching together throughout the process of the Courage Edition. And so I kept reiterating to her, like, you know, the things that you had taught me and ensuring that, you know, she wasn't being knocked down too hard and things like that. So there was it was horrible. Like, I can't even begin to give you like how bad it was. Once my daughter had kind of, I guess, built that strength and courage and things, because I do feel like because she's been knocked down so far, like we kind of got it halfway up and then she got knocked down to like a quarter and then she had to build it back up again. So I think, you know, every kind of situation where she found herself being the target again, it did, even though it would knock her down in the first instant, it would build her back up twice as much, you know, once she got that courage. So I think once she realized, like, again, we went back to the circle of control. The amount of times we've had a conversation about the circle of control is beyond me. I can't remember. I couldn't tell you how many times. I just kept going back to this circle of control. And, you know, she would journal every night in your journal that, you know, is a part that you can purchase as part of the package. And that is the be all and end all, honestly. Like, oh my goodness, journaling for her is like life-changing in itself. If you had provided her a journal and told her to journal without doing, she obviously wouldn't be anywhere near as far as what she is, but that's a life changer.
I love that. I love that. Life changing for me too. So
I need to journal. I probably need to journal a bit more. So she'd journal every day and I would encourage that. And I'd be like, go and take 15 minutes in your room, do your journaling, make yourself feel better, take a deep breath, you know, that kind of thing. And it never got to the point where she was like, oh my God, I don't want to go to school. So even though the bullying was more relentless and it was like proper horrible bullying, like compared to what she was experiencing before, I suppose, like if you put them level, this one was way up there. But she never didn't want to go to school. Like, and I feel like, you know, that speaks more than anything else, you know, the fact that she didn't let it kind of get to that point. But anyway, long story short, she's moved on from that group. She's created her own friendship group. So we're on to our third friendship group, or fourth if you include playing with the year 6 kids. Yep. On to our fourth friendship group of the year, has a beautiful set of friends, loves it, wants to go to school, gets in the car, tells me the tea, which I love. I'm there for that. And and I mean, look, it's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. Girls are girls, tweens are tweens, and it's a horrible time to be alive sometimes. But I think that if we hadn't have worked together and she didn't get the coaching with the bullying, like, I would hate to fathom. Like, it actually scares me. Like, I could get emotional talking about it because you just see all these little girls that are like, just feel like there's no other way out. And it's such a horrible world. Yeah. And I genuinely, hand on heart, think that, you know, had we not done coaching or had we not done this or invested the time and our energy and our emotion into this, I would be scared. I would be so scared for her going into high school and having to navigate that space without the strategies.
Yeah, I totally get that. And that's why I do what I do, because I didn't have the emotional support growing up. and not many of us really did. I think there's a bit of a generational thing there. Maybe the generation above us didn't really know how to be emotionally supportive because of their environment. Or that's my thought anyway. That's what I'm going with. But I think that we have so much education around us, so much accessibility to education, and we can see how important it is to emotionally support our kids through this stuff. Like, I think it's amazing that you've done all this coaching with her. And how old is she now? Is
She's
she
11. She's turning
she's 11
12 next year.
now? Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
she's
And
turning
I
12.
just Oh my gosh. And so,
Um,
yeah, having all of that coaching, whether it was me or someone else, is just setting her up going into the teenage years, which are a battle anyway. They're so challenging. And so she's already built some of the life skills that she's going to need to go into adulthood, which is amazing. Like
yeah. And I
conflict
think,
resolution, problem solving skills. That's incredibly mature for her age.
yeah. And I think as well, like, not only has the Courage Edition taught her all those skills and, really emphasized on that, but I think, as a parent, I thought I was doing, and I'm sure I was doing all the right things, don't get me wrong, because that was but I didn't know how to delve into that on a deeper level. Like, I really struggled with that just because, again, like, I'd never been coached before. I'd never had that kind of upbringing either. So I think, and like I say to my kids all the time, coaching, therapy, talking about your feelings, they're all things that should be admired. Like, you want to go see a psychologist, go for it. You want to go see a counselor, tell me where to pay the money. Because at the end of the day, if they're not speaking to me, they have to be speaking to someone. And
100%.
I would, and even if it is a coach, even if it is like, I know when we were doing our coaching, like that, whatever day we did it, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever it was, like she was raring and ready and excited to go. And she was like an open book. Like she really was.
I love
And so it's not something to be like, and not only for the child, but for the parent, like reaching out for help from a coach in any aspect, whether it be bullying, mental health, anything, like that's not something to be ashamed of. Like I
True.
literally tell people all the time, oh my God, we did this bullying course and you should 110% do it because it was life-changing. And I think, like I just can't stress enough how great it is, because I do feel like there is some sort of a stigma sometimes around getting help as a parent and reaching out for help. And it's okay to say, I don't know what I'm doing, because I can assure you, I don't know what I'm doing every day of the week. So
I say that to my kids sometimes. Like Avery, he'll sometimes come at me about something, or he gets a bit worked up, and I'll say to him, mate, this is the first time I've had an 8-year-old.
yeah,
I'm learning too. And I think it's important to be vulnerable with your kids and say that you're learning and to apologize for things, because that just shows that you're human, and they
yeah,
need to see that, because they need to be okay with being human too. They don't have to be perfect,
yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'm a huge believer in coaches. Like I think even every marriage should have a marriage coach or a marriage counselor or something, because it just helps. It just helps with communication and talking about your feelings,
Yeah,
which is, crucial in any relationship.
yeah,
So yeah, well
absolutely.
done. I love that. I just have one more question for you,
Yeah,
which I kind of think you have answered. If you could give any advice to parents who are in a similar boat to what your child was going through, what would it be?
get a coach. Get a coach.
That's what I thought.
Full stop. Full stop. No, but seriously, get a coach. And if that's not feasible, like if, like genuinely, I know, like if that's not a feasible option, talk about their circle of control. Like ensure that they understand what they can and can't control. Like the circle of control is something that is so important in every single aspect, in the school workplace, in the school environment, in a workplace, in a sporting environment, like just so important. So I would 110% recommend talking about that with any age. Like I talk about it with my 7-year-old. we talk about her circle
Yeah.
of control. You know, she gets in the car, she's had a hard day, she's had an argument with a friend. And they talk about, in her grade, they talk about having a friendship fire, which I really love. I think that's really cute because it's like age appropriate. And she's like, we
Yep.
just need to put the fire out, and we talk about how she can control that situation and what she can control in that situation. So that's really good. I love the circle of control. And, you know, I heard a quote the other day and it like nearly broke me, but it's so true. Like, tell your kids you're proud of them because they may not hear it from anyone else. Like,
I love
tell
that.
them they're beautiful. Tell them that they're doing
Yeah.
a great job. Like, write that everywhere. Put that everywhere. Like we used to have on our mirror, like I said before, I got like a Posca pen, a paint pen, a whiteboard marker, whatever you want it to be. And we had, you know, little affirmations on the mirror or little questions like I am grateful for. And the kids would answer